context that he had to go and research that topic even further. And he put the answer in his book, Fi Fiqh al-Aqalliyat, on fiqh of Muslim minorities. And he looked at the fatwa given by Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi in his book, Ahkam Ahl al-Dhimma, where Ibn Qayyim said there were 9 different opinions on that topic. And of all the opinions, opinion 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 said there has to be divorce. But opinion number 6, 7, 8, and 9 said they stay together. You know. And the evidence, according to Ibn Qayyim, was, the stronger one was they stayed together, though Ibn Taymiyyah's opinion was they don't have sexual intercourse. However, the other opinion, number 7, 8, and 9, which Qardawi felt was equally strong, and probably stronger because of the backing by fatwa by Umar bin Khattab and the Caliph Ali during his time, was that they stayed together if it was not harmful to the woman, etc., and that was the practice of the Sahaba at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So Qardawi gave one fatwa before and condemned another one, but they are all scholars. They keep learning. They never stop getting curious. And he changed their fatwa. So I'm just saying that yes, the individual opinions, if they probably sat down to analyze, they probably would have gotten an answer much earlier. So usually the group is more reliable, but then truth is not by democracy. Sometimes it's the minority that is right, and it takes time for the majority to agree with the minority. The question of locality, it is important that the scholars over locality decide based on what's best for their locality, not taking the fatwa that applies to another place. If what applies to another place also applies here, no problem. Medicine for malaria here may also work in Nigeria. But before you conclude, you need to be sure. Yeah. So you do need local scholars to assess the fatwa, assess their circumstance, and decide whether it's actually applicable or not. When it comes to what madhab do contemporary scholars use, because what you have in many societies, particularly with Muslim minorities, you go to Australia or England or America, you got Hanafis there, you got Shafis there, you got Malikis there, you got everybody there. What do they use? What they actually use to a very great extent is they go with Hanafi fiqh on issues to do with Muslim minorities. They use the Hanafi equations. The other thing they do a lot is to really just ask themselves which of the opinions is more in line with Maqasid in this society. Yeah. And so when Qardawi is giving an answer, he is not always going with a Shafi answer or with a Hanafi answer. Sometimes he goes Maliki, sometimes he goes this, sometimes he goes that. But it's important to find out what's the society he is answering the question to. If he says in this society riba is permissible, don't say he's talking to your society. Yeah, that's why it's good to read the fatwa and read why he answered it in that context. And why certain Imam al-Juwayni considered riba permissible in certain contexts. And this we didn't have time to discuss. When a society gets into haja, it is treated as a darura. Yeah, so they've got reasons for that. And we've answered this one, that yes, no individual has the encyclopedic knowledge to handle everything. And so what they do is get a group of specialists in that area to advise. Of course, there's a problem using classical fatwas for today. Why? Because those mujtahid imams whose opinion we take would sometimes change their fatwa the moment they changed place. I mean, take for example, between the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of Umar bin Khattab, how many fatwas did Umar change? Why? Because society had changed just within 12 years. Abu Bakr was a caliph for just over 2 years, and Umar was caliph for 10 years. But basically within 10 years from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of fatwa, society had changed. But also a lot had changed between the time of Umar and his grandson, Umar bin Abdul Aziz. And new fatwas. The doors of ijtihad are always open. And it's a fardu kifaya, it never stops. It just has to be done by people who are qualified. And sometimes we do a disservice to the same scholars we say we are following. Why? Because if they lived in your society, they would have used their same equations or sometimes other equations to achieve maqasid that moves the ummah forward. We are not to just blindly follow the fatwa. You know, as we drew that tree diagram, yeah, the trees and the leaves and the fruit, they change with the seasons. But you'll always use the tools of usulul fiqh and maqasid to extract rulings again from the Quran and the Sunnah for your new society. The Quran and Sunnah is permanent. The equations are basically permanent. They may be modified within a school and moved between one school and the other, but at least there's a consistent methodology that is used for extracting rulings for changing society. Fiqh is human effort. Fatwas are human effort. And humans, we are liable to make mistakes. That's why in fiqh you have different opinions. But the Quran and Sunnah is permanent for all time and all place. And so we should always look at the tools, make sure we get the scholars who are qualified to extract rulings for our society. And the next society will change its own rulings. Our loyalty is to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, using the methodology, not necessarily the fatwas, but using the methodology of our scholars and the Salaf as-Saleh. So the minhaj and methodology of extracting rulings is what we continue to follow. And we always refer back to the Quran, the Sunnah, and the methodology